The dining room goes quiet in a way expensive places always do. Not silence, control. Crystal glasses hover midair. Cutlery pauses just before porcelain. At the center table, a man in a tailored suit leans back in his chair, one arm draped casually over the leather. He smiles. Then he speaks, softly, confidently, in Arabic. A sentence meant to stay private. A sentence meant to humiliate. A few people at the table chuckle. One man lowers his head, amused. Another checks the room, making sure no one understands. The woman standing beside the table doesn't move. She's holding a tray. Perfect posture. Calm face. Neutral expression. A waitress. Black. Early 20s. Hair tied back neatly. Uniform pressed. The narrator's voice is steady. He thought he was speaking freely, because he thought no one around him could answer back. The billionaire continues, still in Arabic. Not loud. Not angry. Casual cruelty. The kind that assumes safety. The kind that assumes ignorance. He gestures toward the woman without looking at her. Another sentence. Sharper this time. The laughter is quieter now, uncertain. Then the waitress tilts her head slightly. Just enough. She places the tray down gently on the table. No clatter. No rush. And in flawless Arabic, not accented, not hesitant, she replies. Perfect grammar. Perfect pronunciation. Perfect calm. The words land like dropped glass. The table freezes. One man's smile collapses instantly. Another blinks, unsure he heard correctly. The billionaire stiffens. Slowly, very slowly, he looks up at her. What did you just say? He asks, now in English. She doesn't switch languages. She answers him again, still in Arabic. Clear. Controlled. Respectful. But unmistakable. The meaning is obvious even to those who don't understand the words. She understood everything. Every insult. Every joke. Every assumption. Phones come out, not openly, but subtly. A waiter near the bar stops mid-step. The billionaire's confidence cracks, just a hairline fracture, but everyone sees it. I was just talking, he says, forcing a smile. You misunderstood. She finally switches to English. No, she says calmly. I didn't. A pause. Then she adds quietly. And if you'd like, I can repeat exactly what you said, in front of everyone. The room breathes in together. The billionaire laughs once, sharp, fake. That won't be necessary, he says. You should go back to work. She doesn't move. The manager appears at the edge of the room, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. The narrator remains calm. This is the moment powerful people fear the most, when the mask slips in public. The billionaire leans forward now. Voice low. Tight. Do you know who I am? The waitress meets his eyes. Yes, she says. I do. Then she says his name. Correctly. The table erupts, whispers, gasps, a sharp intake of breath. The billionaire's face strains of color. Because now everyone knows something else. She didn't just understand the language. She knew exactly who he was. Security shifts near the entrance. The manager steps closer. The billionaire straightens his jacket, trying to regain control. This conversation is over, he snaps. The waitress nods once. Yes, she says. It is. She picks up her tray, turns, and walks toward the back. The narrator delivers the hard tease, slow, deliberate. What he didn't know was that this wasn't the end of the story. She didn't grow up dreaming of carrying trays. Not because she thought she was above it, but because her life had always been built around something else entirely. Language. Her name is Amina. Quiet. Observant. The kind of person who listens more than she speaks, not out of fear, but habit. Because listening had always been how she survived. She grew up in a house where 3 languages moved through the rooms like air. English at school. French from her mother. Arabic from her grandfather, slow, classical, precise. Not the casual kind. The kind that corrects you. He taught her letters before numbers. Poetry before conversation. Meaning before volume. When she was 12, he made her read newspapers out loud, not for speed, but for tone. When she was 16, he made her translate speeches, not word for word, but intention for intention. Anyone can repeat sounds, he used to say. Understanding is power. She learned early that people reveal their real selves when they think they're not being understood. At university, she studied linguistics, not because it sounded impressive, but because it explained the world she already lived in. Syntax, semantics, sociolinguistics, power dynamics. Who speaks? Who listens? And who assumes silence means ignorance? Life, of course, doesn't move in straight lines. Her father got sick. Medical bills stacked. Scholarships didn't cover everything. So she worked. First cafes. Then hotels. Then restaurants like this one, the kind where the lighting is warm and the patrons are cold. She learned quickly how to disappear when necessary. Head down. Neutral face. Efficient. Polite. Invisible. People said things when they thought she couldn't hear. Things about her accent. Her hair. Her intelligence. Sometimes in English. Sometimes not. Arabic came up more than you'd expect, usually whispered, usually careless, usually cruel. She never reacted. Not once. Because reacting gives people control. And because she knew something they didn't. Language doesn't belong to one's skin color. It belongs to those who earn it. That night, she wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that table. Another waitress had called in sick. A manager reassigned sections. No big moment. No destiny cue. Just chance. The man at the table stood out immediately, not because of his clothes, but because of how space rearranged itself around him. Money does that. People leaned toward him when he spoke. Laughed a second too quickly. Agreed a second too eagerly. Amina noticed something else. He kept switching into Arabic when he wanted to say something sharp. Testing the room. And when no one reacted, he got bolder. Assumptions stacked quickly. Black woman. Waitress. American restaurant. Safe. She heard the first sentence. Then the second. She understood every word. She kept her face neutral, not because it didn't hurt, but because control mattered more than emotion. When he gestured toward her without looking, something shifted. Not anger. Clarity. This wasn't about insult anymore. It was about exposure. She thought of her grandfather's voice, calm, exacting. Never rush power, he used to say. Let it reveal itself. So she waited. She didn't interrupt. She didn't escalate. She waited until he finished. Until the laughter died. Until silence made space. And then she spoke. Not to embarrass him. Not to punish him. But to remove the illusion he was hiding behind. Because the most dangerous thing to someone who relies on status is being seen clearly. His name carried weight long before he entered the room. Not because people admired him, but because money teaches people how to behave around it. He was the kind of man whose presence rewired conversations. Waiters straightened their backs. Managers hovered just far enough away to look respectful instead of nervous. He didn't ask for attention. He expected it. Years of unchecked success had trained him to believe something simple and dangerous. Rules bent around him, people adapted to him, and consequences arrived late, if at all. He spoke 5 languages. At least, that's what he told people. In reality, he spoke enough of each to dominate rooms, not to understand cultures. Arabic, to him, wasn't heritage or precision. It was a shield. A private channel. A way to say the quiet parts out loud without accountability. He used it like a weapon, subtle, polished, deniable. When he first realized no one reacted, his posture changed. Relaxed. Comfortable. Power always announces itself in small ways first. He leaned back more. Lowered his voice. Let his words sharpen. Each sentence pushed further than the last. Not slurs. Not shouting. Something worse. Assumptions. He commented on her posture. Her pace. Her place. All in Arabic. All with a smile. At the table, people followed his lead, some out of agreement, others out of fear. No one challenged him. Why would they? Men like him didn't get challenged in rooms like this. And when Amina answered him, fluently, calmly, something cracked. Not his temper. His certainty. For the first time that night, he wasn't the one controlling the language. That loss rattled him more than the insult itself. So he did what powerful people do when control slips. He reframed. Laughed it off. Minimized. Redirected. I was just talking, he said, smiling tightly. Translation, you're overreacting. When that didn't work, he escalated, quietly. You should go back to work. Translation, remember your place. But she didn't move. And that's when the humiliation began to feel real. Because humiliation isn't about being insulted, it's about being exposed. He leaned forward, voice low now, dangerous. Do you know who I am? It wasn't a question. It was a reminder. A threat wrapped in identity. He expected hesitation. Fear. Apology. Instead, she answered him. Yes. And then she said his name. Correctly. Full name. No stumble. No uncertainty. That wasn't language. That was research. The table reacted instantly. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Someone else checked their phone, not casually this time. The billionaire's smile vanished. Because now the power dynamic had flipped. He wasn't the anonymous authority anymore. He was identified. And identified people can be held accountable. His response was automatic. End the interaction. Shut it down. Reassert dominance. This conversation is over. But it wasn't. Not really. Because the damage wasn't in the words she spoke, it was in what everyone else realized. That his confidence relied on people not understanding him. That his cruelty depended on silence. That his power only worked when it wasn't challenged. As she walked away, he stayed seated. Rigid. Controlled. Silent. The room didn't return to normal. It never does after something like that. People whispered now, not about her. About him. The narrator's voice stays level. This is the moment arrogance turns into fear, when the wrong person understands exactly who you are. He thought the embarrassment was over. He thought the threat was neutralized. He thought the worst thing that could happen was a waitress answering back. He was wrong. Power doesn't disappear when it's challenged. It retreats. And then it looks for a way to reassert itself quietly. The billionaire didn't follow her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. That would have meant admitting he'd lost control. Instead, he waited. He paid the bill without comment. Left an excessive tip, the kind meant to buy silence. Nodded once to the manager on the way out, as if nothing had happened. From the outside, it looked finished. Inside his car, his jaw tightened. Humiliation is unbearable to people who have never been told no. He replayed the moment in his head, not her words, but the reaction around the table. The shift. The whispers. Exposure lingered. So he did what men like him always do when challenged by someone they believe they can still overpower. He leveraged systems. Not confrontation, consequence. The next morning, the restaurant manager received a call. Polite. Measured. Expensive accent. The man praised the food. Praised the service. Then paused. I'm concerned, he said calmly, about one of your staff. Concern is a dangerous word when money says it. He didn't accuse her of rudeness. That could be disputed. He accused her of unprofessional behavior. Of creating discomfort. Of politicizing the dining experience. He implied investors. Reputation. Future partnerships. Never directly threatened. He didn't have to. By noon, Amina was called into the office. The manager wouldn't meet her eyes. There was a complaint, he said. She already knew. They always framed it that way. A complaint. As if truth were optional. She listened quietly as he explained, words like tone, misunderstanding, perception. She didn't argue. Didn't defend herself. She asked one question. Was the complaint about what I said, or about the fact that I understood? The manager froze. That silence told her everything. By the end of the shift, her schedule was temporarily adjusted. Fewer hours. Different sections. Isolation disguised as neutrality. The billionaire didn't stop there. He never does. 2 days later, a letter arrived at the restaurant. Legal letterhead. Soft language. Hard intent. It accused Amina of defamation. Of falsely implying statements that could damage a private individual's reputation. The irony was surgical. She had repeated his own words. But now those words were inconvenient. The restaurant panicked. No one wanted a lawsuit. Not even an empty one. Amina was asked, gently, to take time off. She nodded. Collected her things. Left without saying goodbye. That's when the line was crossed. Not when he mocked her. Not when he tried to silence her. But when he attempted to erase her. Because erasure assumes weakness. And he'd made a fatal miscalculation. He thought she was alone. That night, Amina sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. Not angry. Focused. She didn't write a post. Didn't go viral. She gathered evidence. Security footage from the restaurant. Time-stamped audio from the table next to his. Messages from coworkers who'd witnessed everything. She translated the Arabic, precisely, clinically. No embellishment. Just truth. Then she made a call. Not to a journalist. To a law clinic she'd volunteered at years earlier, back when language was how she gave back. They listened. Carefully. When she finished, there was a pause on the line. Then the attorney spoke. Do you understand what you have here? Yes, Amina said. Do you? Another pause. This isn't defamation, the attorney said. This is retaliation. Silence settled, not heavy this time. Clear. The narrator remains calm. This is the moment powerful people never see coming, when their attempt to silence someone creates a record. The billionaire thought he'd ended the story. He thought paperwork and pressure would make it disappear. He didn't realize he just documented his own behavior. And documentation doesn't forget. Fear didn't arrive the way it usually does. No panic. No spiraling thoughts. No late-night breakdowns. Amina felt something else. Clarity. Once you understand the rules someone is using against you, the fear fades. And she understood them perfectly. This wasn't about embarrassment anymore. It wasn't even about language. It was about power reacting badly to exposure. The attorney laid it out plainly. What he did in the restaurant, she said, was ugly, but not illegal. Amina nodded. She already knew that. But what he did afterward, the attorney continued, that's different. Retaliation. Workplace interference. Coercion through legal intimidation. Patterns. That's what courts care about. Not one incident, but behavior. Amina didn't raise her voice. She didn't ask for revenge. She asked one question. What do we document next? That question changed the tone of the room. Because it meant she wasn't reacting anymore. She was planning. They started small. Timeline reconstruction. Call logs. Emails from the restaurant manager, carefully worded, but revealing. They preserved the legal letter, its phrasing, its implications, its timing. The attorney explained something crucial. When powerful people overreach, she said, they assume you won't challenge them. That assumption is leverage. Amina understood immediately. The billionaire had already made his mistake. He'd escalated. Which meant he could escalate again. So they waited. Not passively, deliberately. They didn't send a demand letter. Didn't respond publicly. Didn't warn him. Silence, used correctly, is a mirror. Within days, another move came. A private mediator reached out. Friendly tone. Discreet language. An offer to resolve the misunderstanding. Translation: sign something and go away. The terms were insulting. A small payout. A non-disclosure agreement. No admission of wrongdoing. Amina read it carefully. Then she smiled, just slightly. Because this wasn't resolution. It was confirmation. He was afraid. Afraid enough to want control back. Afraid enough to leave a paper trail. The attorney leaned forward. Now we act, she said. Not loudly. Precisely. They declined the offer, politely, formally, and requested all future communication go through counsel. That alone shifted the balance. The billionaire's tone changed in the next message. Shorter. Sharper. Less confident. Pressure replaced charm. And pressure leaves fingerprints. Amina's role now was simple. Be consistent. Be calm. Say nothing unnecessary. Meanwhile, the legal team expanded the scope. Labor board complaints. Wrongful interference. Retaliation statutes. They contacted the restaurant's parent company. Quietly. With evidence. The response was immediate. Internal review. Suspended manager. Apologies, careful, corporate, revealing. Amina didn't celebrate. She understood something important. This wasn't about winning fast. It was about closing doors. Every door the billionaire tried to use, money, influence, intimidation, was being sealed one by one. The attorney delivered the final piece. There's one more thing, she said. His legal team made a mistake. Amina looked up. They assumed you were bluffing. They didn't verify your background. A pause. They don't know you studied linguistics. They don't know you've worked with legal translation. Amina's eyes narrowed slightly. And they don't know, the attorney continued, that his Arabic statements, legally translated, changed the context of everything. Now the trap was set. Because intent matters. And intent lives in language. The narrator remained steady. This is the moment control shifts completely, when intelligence replaces intimidation. Amina closed her laptop. Not with anger. With certainty. He didn't expect the meeting to feel like this. Neutral conference room. Glass walls. No cameras. Just a table, a pitcher of water, and people who weren't impressed by his name. The billionaire arrived 10 minutes late, a subtle signal he usually used to reclaim dominance. It didn't work. Amina was already seated. Calm. Prepared. Silent. Across from her sat two attorneys, hers and his. No greetings. No small talk. His lawyer opened with what sounded like reason. We're here to resolve a misunderstanding. Amina's attorney didn't correct him. She let him continue. He spoke about reputational harm. Misinterpretation. Cultural nuance. All words designed to blur. Then Amina's attorney slid a folder across the table. Let's be precise, she said. Inside were transcripts. Not summaries. Not paraphrases. Exact translations. Certified. Time-stamped. Contextualized. The billionaire glanced at the pages, casually at first. Then slower. His expression tightened. Because there was no ambiguity. His words in Arabic were there in black and white. Insults. Assumptions. Derogatory implications. Rendered cleanly into English. Language stripped of deniability. You recognize these statements? Amina's attorney asked. The billionaire leaned back. They're out of context, he said quickly. Private conversation. Not private, the attorney replied. You said them in a public venue, to multiple witnesses, about an employee. Silence. His lawyer shifted. Even if that were true, the billionaire said, this still doesn't justify what followed. That was the opening they were waiting for. Amina's attorney nodded. You're right, she said. It's what followed that matters. She slid another document forward. Call logs. Emails. The letter. A clean timeline. Can you explain? She asked calmly. Why you contacted her employer 2 hours after leaving the restaurant? He hesitated. Just long enough. I was concerned about professionalism, he said. I have a right. And the legal letter? The attorney asked. 2 days later? He exhaled sharply. That was precautionary. The room stayed quiet. No one rushed him. Silence does something powerful. It invites mistakes. His lawyer leaned toward him, whispering something. Too late. Amina spoke for the first time. Her voice was steady. You didn't want professionalism, she said. You wanted silence. The billionaire snapped his head toward her. That's not what I said. She looked at him. Then at the documents. It is, she replied. In Arabic. That did it. Because language was his shield. And now it was the weapon pointed back at him. He leaned forward. You know what? He said, irritation breaking through. Fine. Maybe I said something inappropriate. But this is ridiculous. There it was. Not denial. Minimization. Admission disguised as dismissal. Amina's attorney didn't smile. She simply asked, Would you like that noted on record? The billionaire froze. His lawyer closed his eyes briefly. The room shifted. Power always does when it realizes it's been cornered. Security at the door adjusted their stance. The billionaire cleared his throat. I shouldn't have called the restaurant, he said. That wasn't my intention. Another slip. Another confirmation. The attorney wrote it down. Thank you, she said. That's all we needed. The billionaire leaned back again. But this time, the confidence didn't return. Because his words, spoken casually, arrogantly, had become evidence. And evidence doesn't forget tone. The narrator remains calm. This is the moment arrogance becomes testimony, when the things said in private stop being private forever. The story didn't end with a raised voice. It ended the way real accountability usually does. Quietly. On paper. In rooms without spectators. The settlement wasn't announced publicly. There was no press conference. No apology tour. But it was thorough. The restaurant's parent company issued a formal acknowledgement, careful language, but unmistakable responsibility. Amina's job was offered back with full hours and back pay. She declined. Not out of bitterness. Out of clarity. She had outgrown the room where silence was expected. The labor board findings came next. Retaliation confirmed. Procedural violations documented. The manager who had handled the complaint was reassigned, then quietly let go. No headlines. Just consequences. The billionaire's legal team moved fast. They requested confidentiality. Offered compensation that reflected urgency, not generosity. This time, there was an admission clause. Narrow. Specific. Real. It acknowledged inappropriate conduct, retaliatory communication, and misuse of influence. Nothing dramatic. Everything damaging. Because admissions don't need emotion. They need accuracy. Amina used part of the settlement to finish her degree. Not for symbolism, for momentum. She returned to the work she had always done best. Translation. But not menus. Testimony. Legal interpretation. International arbitration. Language where meaning decides outcomes. She became the person people called when words mattered. When nuance could cost millions. The irony didn't escape her. The billionaire's world shrank, not overnight, but steadily. Board invitations slowed. Advisory roles disappeared. Nothing public. Just doors that stopped opening. People who'd once laughed at his jokes now kept their distance. Not because they'd heard the story. Because they'd heard enough. That's how reputations really change. Not with scandals. with silence. Years later, Amina would think about that night sometimes, not with anger, but with precision. She remembered the moment he switched into Arabic, believing it made him untouchable. Believing language belonged to him. It never did. Language belongs to those who listen long enough to understand it. The narrator closes softly. He thought fluency gave him cover. He never realized it gave her the record. Final line: calm, reflective, complete. He spoke to humiliate her. She listened to end it.